Welcome back to the Traitors episode 3. And I've said that the first two episodes were very, very good, very, very entertaining. But this episode took things to a whole nother level. And I don't think you guys understand how incredible this episode is if you haven't been watching it. A lot of people were worried that this season would not live up to the first season. But my God, they are really, really doing everything they can to make sure that we believe this is just as good, if not better. So, without much further ado, let's get straight into who was murdered. So, there's a few different conversations that were happening at the breakfast table. Anthony and Diane were basically going to have a conversation and put their differences aside. But also, I found it interesting that Charlie brought up the fact that Diane was cheering when Sonia was eliminated. Now, we heard the conversation between Diane and I think it was Ross and somebody else the previous night when she was like, oh, I shouldn't have cheered. It was just a reaction to the fact that I was right that she was innocent. And then I realised, oh my God, that's going to look bad. But obviously Charlie's picked up on that, hasn't heard that conversation, and is now very suspicious of Diane. So that could potentially cause a problem in the future. Ash's name was brought up by Evie as a potential suspect, which I thought was quite interesting. Can't remember how she came to that conclusion, but it did seem like there was some kind of basis behind the claim. I'm a little bit worried for Ash. I think a couple of people are starting to suspect that she might be involved somehow, and that could potentially cause issues. It was interesting that there was a conversation about, I can't remember who told him. I think it might have been Andrew. Andrew told Paul, "Hey, yo, Diane. Well, Zach thinks that she's your mum." And Paul's sitting there going, what? I mean, she's not, but like, just because we both have red hair doesn't mean that she's my mum. And I just thought that it was a very interesting little tidbit to sort of sprinkle in at the start of the episode. We'll get to that a little bit later, just because that's quite a big storyline. And then we found out who had been murdered. Unfortunately, Kyra had been murdered, and honestly, I'm not surprised. Out of the three people they named, you had Johnny, you had Meg, you had Kyra. The smartest person to get rid of was Kyra, because she was leading a lot of the discussion. But I also think that they should have left Kyra in, because she could have potentially been somebody that led discussion and helped to sort of take suspicion off of them by putting suspicion on herself, because she's so outspoken, because she's so happy to just say who she thinks it is. In the space of 2 episodes, well, 3 episodes now, Charlie has managed to be like, oh, I don't think it's Paul. And now in this episode, she said, I don't think it's Harry. I think he's very, very innocent. Bestie, you're not good at this game. You're so horrendous, but also it is tough. So like, I can't hold it against you, but you're making some bad, bad, bad decisions right now. As for the other interesting thing that happened before we get onto the big bombshell that happened in this episode, Tracy was trying to sort of read Anthony. So Tracy's the clairvoyant. She sat him down and was like, I'm gonna start by reading your star sign. I'm getting a Capricorn. You went, no, I'm an Aries. And I just thought, oh, you're not doing a good job of what's the word? Proving to me that you're a clairvoyant. So I feel like I was worried about there being a clairvoyant, because I was like, oh, maybe this will be the person that kind of can read people. She can't. Although she has sussed Ash out particularly well, which I thought was quite interesting. But I also just think that Ash is just very uncomfortable around, like, potentially like clairvoyance and people like that. I don't know. There's something that's making Ash feel uncomfortable about Tracy. and vice versa, to be fair. So I think that there's definitely something interesting going on there. But here is the big bombshell. Are we ready for the big bombshell? Because this caught me so far off guard. Diane was told by Paul, "Oh, Zach thinks that you're my mum." And Diane's like, "Now where would he get an idea like that?" I can't do it. I can't do a Northern Irish accent, so we're just gonna forget that that happened. But do you want to know what she did next? She went, "Yeah, Paul just couldn't be my son, but Ross is." And then, like, on the level of saw twists, where it's like do 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 do, that I felt like that should have been playing behind the little montage of all the clips that we've seen of them so far, and how everything's kind of been hinting towards the fact that they're mother and son. Like on the train when she's sitting there and she's going, "Oh, who got you to do this show?" And he sits there and he goes, "Oh yeah, my mother signed me up for this." I actually could not believe what I was watching. And there were so many other like little moments where, like, the other day, or the other episode, I think it was last episode, when Diane was warning him not to go after Sonia because it might put a target on his back. I thought that was odd because I was like, "Oh, that's a weird thing for her to say. Like, surely she'd just like let him hang himself. Like, there's surely no way that she's giving him this kind of level of advice." But it now makes so much more sense, and I'm just shocked. I'm still in shock. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes, my ears. Craziness. Honestly, what a brilliant twist. This is kind of on the same level as Alex and Tom from last series. Um I think Tom was the pink-haired guy, where they revealed that they were in a relationship together. I don't know when this is going to come out, but if it does, oh, that's going to cause so many problems. That's going to cause so many problems. No, because that's horrendous. Also, what a juicy, delicious twist. So it's time for the third challenge, and I gotta say it was a decent one. It wasn't too bad. They were split into two teams of six and one team of seven, and it was the opinions challenge. So I remember them doing it in Jeeps last year, but this time they had to run around, pick up a scarecrow, unlock a key. If they got it right, then they could progress to the next one. Cool, 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 cool. There were three teams: red, blue, yellow. 10 grand on offer if they could get all of the things at the end. I'll explain what happened at the end because they had to get to like the field of gold, and then it got a little bit complicated. So like I said, it was an opinions challenge. They were all given a questionnaire and asked different questions. The first question was, who would believe conspiracy theories? I'm fairly certain it was between Zach and Tracy. And blue and green team went for... Was it blue and green? No, it's blue and red. Yeah, blue and red went for Zach. Yellow team went for Tracy. Tracy was wrong. It was Zach was voted most likely to believe in conspiracy theories. Biggest sheep, everyone went for Molly, and they were all wrong because apparently Brian is the biggest sheep, which I think really winded him up, wound him up a little bit. I don't think he was expecting that, and I think that kind of pissed him off and upset him in a way that will have further repercussions down the line, I think. Most popular player, Paul was the most popular player. I think it was between Paul and Johnny, and blue team got it wrong. I find it very interesting that Paul has been voted the most popular player, because I feel like that's going to backfire on him, because he's currently everyone really really likes him at the moment, doesn't think that there's any way he could be a traitor, but I'm starting to think he may get caught out sooner or later. It's tough to win this game. It really, really is. So I guess you just got to try and put your best foot forward. So after all of the Scarecrow questions, they were taken to a field of gold. There were about 50 odd Scarecrows there, which I thought was pretty ridiculous. And then they were asked to rip apart the Scarecrows and find gold coins or shields within them, which I thought was very, very interesting. So the people who managed to get shields were Jasmine. She got one by accident. Zach got himself one, although he was. This was what I found interesting, because in the last round table, he was like, "Oh, Kyra, you're having to go at Andrew because he said he didn't want to get shields, but then you got a shield." And he was basically like, "You shouldn't do that. That's hypocritical." And then he was like, "Oh, let's not worry about the shields." And then he went to go get a shield in this one. It's just giving me, meddlesome vibes, and I don't like it. Zach, not in my good books, but also like, you're playing a game, so it's hard. It's hard to dislike you because you're playing a game and you're playing it decently at the moment. So yeah, Jasmine, Zach both have shields. They managed to raise 5,000 out of the 10,000 that they needed, which brought their grand total to 24 grand, I'm pretty sure. Which is a respectable amount. That's definitely a respectable amount to win. Do I think they should have gotten more? Yeah, I really struggled to see how they managed to only get 5 out of 10. Like, it didn't seem like there were that many Scarecrows for the amount of people that were there ripping them apart, but it is what it is. There's not really much you can do. Maybe the coins were just very, very, very well hidden. It's time for the second banishment, but before we do that, there are a couple of conversations that happened before the banishment that I just want to bring up. Paul is starting to lay the seeds that some of the quieter people of the group could be playing a game, and this is when Diane brings up Ash's name, and immediately I feel like there's some kind of sentiment that this is worrying Paul a little bit. Apparently Zach made a comment to Charlotte that she was going to be enjoying a last supper, because they've got like a roast dinner, and it rubbed Charlotte up the wrong way and really annoyed her. And I think that's when Jasmine had to be like, "Look, Zach, people are starting to get really, really annoyed with things that you're saying and things that you're doing. So just like, I get it, you're coming from like a jokey sense, but this is a high stakes paranoia game. You can't be saying these things and thinking that people aren't going to be looking at you suspiciously. Because I'm not going to lie, if someone said a Last Supper comment to me in this context, that's not okay. That's not okay. You can't be saying those things to me, because like, what if it is my Last Supper? Yeah, no. You can't be saying that to me. I'm sorry, but you can't. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. And then Evie and Diane were talking about Ash, and it really, really feels like they're going to be gunning for Ash in this sort of banishment ceremony, the round table. I'm worried for her. I'm going to be honest. I'm really, really worried, because obviously you root for the traitors in this because they're the ones that are putting their necks on the line. So it's tough, because I also want to root for Diane because she gave us the biggest bombshell of the series. So I don't know. Very, very interesting, I gotta say, but who knows? So somehow Claudia said they're up to 27 grand. Not quite sure how that maths works out, because they got 15 grand, 4 grand, and 5 grand. And that does not add up to 27 grand, but we'll move on from that. Time to talk about the round table. It's the most dramatic one I think we've ever had. It had so many amazing moments, and it ended on a horrific cliffhanger. So first of all, Brian started by bringing up the fact that he was disappointed that people thought he was a sheep. And I think this is starting to really, really, really play on his mind. Zach then called for people to be respectful, which I thought was interesting. But then Charlotte brought up the fact that the shield, that he got a shield, and that this whole thing could be a double bluff on his part, which I thought was quite interesting. Is he sort of trying to con them into thinking that he's innocent by getting a shield when he said don't get the shields? I don't know, it's interesting. Miles and Harry also chimed in and sort of backed up Charlotte a little bit, which I thought was quite interesting, especially because they are the traitors and they're trying to throw suspicion on Zach at the same time. Then Jasmine moved it back to Brian, saying that he's anxious and he's jittery and he just doesn't seem as good anymore. Then Johnny chimed in as well, and Brian said that he feels like he's more confident in the game because he now knows people. I think Johnny accused him of being now more confident than he was when we started, and Brian was basically like, well, to be fair, I know people now, I'm not as anxious to talk to people, but then when I get in this kind of situation, that's when the anxiety does come out. So like I feel more comfortable in group settings now because I know people, which I think is an absolutely fair and valid statement to say. So I thought that was quite interesting. Charlie then brought up the fact that Diane cheered, and she basically went, look guys, I'm really, really sorry that happened. This is why I did it. I didn't mean it to come across that way, but I'm really, really sorry. It won't happen again. It was just a in the moment reaction to the fact that she was innocent and I was right, basically, because I didn't vote for her. So I think that was a good apology. Maybe not in some people's eyes, I don't know, but it was enough for me to be like, sure, well done. Right, next up, Paul randomly just threw out the fact that Jazz's energy has changed, and then Paul was like, do you want to comment on that? And Jazz just kind of went, no, not particularly. Which did no one else think that was really odd? I thought that was so strange. The fact that he went, yeah, no, I'm not going to say anything about it. What's the point? I don't really want to talk about it. And I was like, this 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 guy, what is he? What is he doing? What is he doing here? Why is he just not talking? He's just he's not adding anything to anything. Oh, it's so funny. Roz brought up the fact that Meg could be going under the radar. Meg basically clapped back and said, well, I'm not a confident speaker. And then Jasmine basically chimed in and was like, well, what's the point in saying nothing? You're not here to just sit quietly and do nothing. Say something, speak up, which like I kind of do agree with, I won't lie. Meg has kind of gone under the radar. I don't really know anything about Meg, so bit of a tough one currently. Tracy then brought up Ash's name. Tracy was really, really digging Ash a grave by just nitpicking little things that she said. Ash was like, oh, I tried to go around to everyone, and then later on she was like, I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to Diane. And then Tracy was like, well, she haven't talked to everyone then. And I was like, well, okay, well, you know when you say everyone, it doesn't mean everyone. It's like oh yeah, I talk to everyone. But like no one talks to everyone. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things you say. You're not gonna I've spoken to everyone but this person, this person, this person. You're not gonna do that. You're gonna, yeah, but I tried to speak to everyone. That's what she was saying. And then Claudia was like, guys, it's time to and then she gets cut off by Brian, and Brian goes, wait, before anything happens, and Claudia's like goes back into the shadows. Brian's like, wait. I just want to know, and he starts to have a mental breakdown. He's like, I just want to know whether you guys think I'm innocent or not. And everyone's sitting there going, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? And he's like, no, I just need to know what people are thinking right now because I don't know what to put on my I don't know what to put on my board. I don't know what to put on my board. And people are like, what? Bro, what's going on? Because this guy is just like cracked. Is it guilt? Or is it the fact that he's just completely anxiety ridden by this whole situation? What is going on? So it's time to vote. And I have to be honest, this vote was crazy to watch. So I'm just going to reel them off. Andrew voted for Ash. Jasmine voted for Brian. Ross voted for Meg. Ash voted for Diane. Anthony voted for Zach. Meg voted for Diane. Evie voted for Ash. Brian voted for Paul, which is crazy because he's trying to not be a sheep and he's inadvertently just voted for a traitor, which I find hilarious. Charlotte voted for Brian. Paul voted for Jazz. Charlie voted for Diane. Jazz voted for Brian. Diane voted for Ash. Harry voted for Zach. Zach voted for Diane. Johnny voted for Brian. Molly voted for Anthony. Miles voted for Zach. Tracy voted for Ash. So that means after the first vote, there is a three-way tie between between Diane, Ash, and Brian. Those three. Three-way tie between those three. Which means they all have to vote again. I don't think I don't think there was a moment last series where it came down to a tiebreaker, which is crazy. So each one of the three got a chance to say their piece. I think Brian dug himself a deeper hole a little bit. Diane, yeah, she seemed quite cool and collected. Ash seemed a little bit troubled, but she was kind of just like, I don't understand why you guys have been targeting me. Which I kind of agree with. I feel like it's come out of nowhere. That they're right, but it has come out of nowhere. So we come on to the second vote. And the second vote is where we're unfortunately going to have to end things. But let me just reel through what people said. So, Meg voted for Diane. Evie voted for Ash. Charlotte voted for Brian. Paul voted for Ash. Now, when this happened, I sat up because I was like, the traitors are already turning on each other. Not a chance. Is Harry going to vote the same? Like, what's going on? So Paul's voted for Ash. Charlie's voted for Diane. Jazz has voted for Brian. Harry's voted for Ash as well. So there's two traitors that have voted for Ash. Zach has voted for Diane. Johnny's voted for Brian. Molly's voted for Brian. Miles has voted for Brian. Tracy for Ash. Andrew for Ash. Jasmine for Brian. Ross for Ash. And that leaves it with, I think Diane had three votes out of the group. The other two had 6 apiece, which means it all came down to Anthony's vote. Now, Anthony voted Zach in the first round. We genuinely do not know who he's going to pick. It could be Brian, it could be Ash. I genuinely do not know. And it's crazy that we have to wait until next Wednesday. This was a fantastic cliffhanger, but my God, it's evil. And it's conniving and it's calculated because they knew this would be a fantastic cliffhanger for the end of week 1. They couldn't have just given us it. I'm so upset. But yeah, that was pretty much the vote. 6-6, Ash and Brian. Diane is safe. If I'm being honest, I would rather see Brian go, which is gutting because I really did like Brian, just because I want Ash to keep playing. But when it comes down to those two, I'm going to have to back my girl Ash because she is a traitor and she is doing a decent job. I want her to at least survive the second banishment. Come on, guys. It's ridiculous. How are we playing the game so poorly that we're getting a traitor out? Well, from the traitor's perspective, that we're getting a traitor out episode 2, episode 3 even, second banishment. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. I will see you guys next Thursday for a brand new Traitors episode. Till then, keep on ranting. Bye now.